Beloveds, happy full moon in Gemini. I bring this message to you from the heart of Birmingham, Alabama. Yes, I'm back in the US, back in my homeland. And there's completion in the air for many of us, yeah. I'm curious, what does it feel like to you? What is present? What's moving in your life? And making space in this winter season here in the US, or perhaps making space for you in another season in another place in the world. Also approaching the solstice point. So we're having this climax of energy. Mercury is gone direct. And so now there's more forward movement and motion around communication, decision making. And yet there's still a little bit of retraction with Mars still in retrograde for a little bit. And this full moon, Gemini is playful. It's about expression. It's about communication. It's about the inner child. And that free curiosity and lightness in life. I've heard many people say this, that if there was an archetype in the zodiac to fly, it would be Gemini. So my son is Gemini, and I've always experienced flying in my dreams. In my dreams, it actually shows up as me remembering how to fly. It's like, oh yeah, I know how to do this. So that should give you like a little bit of an idea of the vibe around this full moon, is what is inhibiting your ability to find that lightness and that playfulness in your spirit and the connection with your inner child. And of course these lessons and this awareness often comes through the lack of it. It comes through the contrast of it, through the inhibition or the restriction around those parts of our being. So let's go ahead and drop in and receive the messages around this, and calling on the highest light of truth and wisdom, of healing. Also feeling the presence of Magdalene and the presence of the whole lineage of the rose. Presence of Yeshua as we're moving into a time where there is focus on the Christ consciousness, and calling that into this reading to reveal any messages, any directives that may help us to see in ourselves and maybe through the world around us where we're playing small, where we're feeling confined, where we're not allowing authentic expression and joy and playfulness to come into balance with other areas in our life. And just bringing forward any illumination around the patterns that may be causing suffering. And giving thanks to this. So, I always love this time of the year. I love the energy around the solstices and the equinoxes. It feels empowering. It feels very alive and productive, and not even necessarily like in an outward way. It's just the awareness that things are moving, and sometimes it's whether we want them to or not. There's movement. There's generally not a feeling of stagnancy around these points of seasonal shifts. So feeling into what the theme is around this moon. We have the rabbit from the Mayan Oracle deck. For me, when I think of the rabbit, I think of reproduction, I think of fertility, I think of a point in time where there's multiplication. And here's what it looks like. It's a prominent symbol in ancient Mexico, but in a couple of different ways. So we'll read about that. The rabbit can be seen on the face of the moon. In one of the creation myths, the sun and moon were both equally bright. And one of the deities put a rabbit in the moon to dim its light so that the earth would have night. The other significance is that the rabbit is linked with the intoxicating beverage of pulque, also associated with the mayoel and the magi plant. If a person is intoxicated, the 400 rabbits take control and anything can happen. I'm not familiar with that unless that is tequila, which it might be, the mayoel. When the rabbit comes to you, it's a sign to take off your mask and be your authentic self. If something or someone is trying to dim your light, you need to do something to allow your true light to shine brightly. All right, so that's perfect alignment for this moon, for the energy of Gemini, which is ruled by the throat chakra and wants to be expressive and authentic and generally is the life of the party. So how can you start to call in that truth through your beingness, through your interactions? Where do you feel yourself pull back and people please or become a chameleon and try to fit in? You know, I used to pride myself on the fact that I can be a chameleon, and I felt that was part of the Gemini who can see both sides of things. When Gemini is in its shadow, it's two-faced. But when it's in its light, it can shift perspectives and it can see from all perspectives. So it's a dual mind, but it's a dual mind that when cultivated and in right relationship with, it actually offers a greater perspective, a greater vantage point, because it can see both polarities. So we have an indication here that what's current in this energy is attracting like a rose, receiving abundance, desires. I've been feeling the Magdalene frequency so strongly in this past week. It's been like overwhelming. And this is the first time I've actually seen this card, so I'm curious to hear what this says is already currently here and being transmitted. Have you ever noticed how in summer, when the rose is at its fullest and its scent is hanging in the air, bees and other pollinators suddenly appear? Pollination happens when pollen from one plant mixes with pollen from another, or when it's transferred from the stigma of one flower to the stigma of another. Roses don't go running all over the place, reaching and grabbing. Rather, they rely on the bees to come to them. The rose is never reaching for the bee. It's never grasping or overstretching. It embraces what it is fully and allows life to come to it. It receives it fully. It doesn't open and close according to who walks by. It blooms regardless. This card is about receiving abundance, rose style. It's an invitation to receive the sweetness of your life, to embrace the magnificence of who you are, and also to open yourself up to the possibility of receiving what you yearn for deeply. To be clear on what you desire, to trust that all that's meant for you will come to you. To state your desires out loud and let your yearnings be known. To ask for what you desire. Don't reach or grasp. Don't strive, control, or manipulate. That will leave you exhausted, parched, and brittle. This card delivers the message that true, sustainable abundance is coming. Connect with your sensual, true nature. Be unashamed of what you desire. And when it comes, relish each moment. And the soul inquiry here is, what do you desire? What is it that your heart longs and yearns for? What are you ready to open yourself up and receive? And how can you attract like a flower? Wow. Feels so aligned with the medicine of Divine Mother, of Magdalene, of divine femininity, of allowing. Feels really, really poignant. And our challenge is the snake. And as I'm feeling into the possibilities of that, I'm thinking of Shakti, of the feminine life force that pulses through the body and through creation. The wisdom that underlies creation. And what shadow is possessed by that? Comes back to those inhibitions around maybe vulnerability, around trust. And of course, as I read this card, it says the divine feminine, a spiritual awakening, a healing. Snake is one of the oldest known symbols of the goddess, powerful correspondence with the occult, rich meaning, and revered in many cultures, connected with the Kundalini and triggering profound spiritual awakenings. And just as a snake shedding its skin is a pure sign of its growth, you may be experiencing old beliefs of versions of yourself falling away now. Recognize that this is a necessary part of your healing journey. Often, we've undergone a profoundly difficult or painful time, and we emerge on the other side feeling as though we are a completely different person. To fully embrace this new authentic version of yourself, it is necessary to let that fall away and to complete the process of integration. Shed the dead weight and welcome in this healthier version of yourself. And what followed this is the bud. It's potential, it's promise, it's about to happen. Keep going. It's the encouragement that you're in it, you're doing it. Maybe those desires that you've already identified, that you planted around this last new moon. But it feels like even earlier on this year that this is a point where it's starting to come to a completion in that developmental stage. And we'll read into the bud as well. But as you look at this card and you hear these messages about the rose and about awakening and shedding skin, what comes to you? What does that evoke for you? For me, I have been through a massive metamorphosis, and I'm in what feels like a final stage of that. A bud is an embryonic swelling on the stem of the rose that has the potential to develop into a flower, leaf, or shoot. In temperate climates, plants form resting buds that are resistant to brutal frost. The bud is the promise of what's to come. It's the physical manifestation of the seed that we've been holding deep in the earth, nurturing and dreaming through the fertile void of winter. Now we find ourselves in the inner season of spring, and the bud is beginning to realize what it was always destined to be. But it still requires tending in order to bloom one day soon. This is a card of encouragement, potential excitement, and hope. It invites you to keep facing your true north and show up for what you're being called to create. Your effort has not gone unnoticed. Keep going. Someday soon you'll begin to see this beautiful creation in the world. The bud is connected with spring, the time when the upward energy of life is bursting on through. You may be seeing the first signs that things are beginning to come together. If you've been working on a project or have been dedicating yourself to ushering in some change in your life, you're being called to keep going and trust that what you've been working toward is happening. Keep tending your garden, and before long, the bud will begin to unfold and bloom. What new buds are beckoning to bloom with you? As we go into winter, this is a time where we're invited to get still and to hold space for ourselves, hold space for the decomposure of what has passed and for the arrival of what is yet to be. It seems that this is a pivotal point in creating this next stage of life as we go through the death first and foremost. And we close this reading with a jade card. And it's what will come if we take on this opportunity to release and to show up in our bravery and our vulnerability and our willingness and surrender to the unknown. With our dreamy eyes and our curiosity of a child to create unboundless, unfathomable wealth. And when I say wealth, I'm not referring just to like a monetary financial security, but the wealth of time and freedom and health and friends and community, all of the things that we value that create wellness in our life. So the jade was a very precious stone by the Maya and the Mexican and many other cultures as well. So this is the perfect space to begin something new. Whatever you create will germinate and grow. Jade is also a protector, so be assured that the tender new growth will be kept safe. It actually feels a little effortless, and I thank the window of the solstice for providing this extra support right now to be able to release and let go and transmute, so that these intentions that we start to weave, these desires that we're implanting into the field and into the universe, are protected and can grow with ease. And I'm being reminded that when we grow things and we plant things, to not only focus on the self, but to focus on the whole. So when you're planting intentions and creating seeds for your life, think about, how will this sustain the people around me? Am I planting only for myself? Well, that would be a really sad future if we were only focused on planting for ourselves and others are left to starve. So we bring that into this time and space right now, is how do you plant intentions also for the collective to receive? How do you serve others in planting maybe when they can't? So there's a strong invitation in this reading with this energy to ask, what can you plant for the world? What can you donate? What can you invest in that's not for you? not for you directly. And see how that investment and intention and energy helps other seeds thrive, your seeds thrive. What would happen if someone else was planting seeds for you? There's this idea in the Mayan cosmology around the energy of the seed, Kanya. And it's about planting the seeds for when there's not a lot of growth. You plant the seeds and you have some that ripen immediately and some a little bit later, and then you have the long-term ones. And there's an idea of planting for when there's not growth, so that there's something to sustain through that period of life. So I invite you to take that into your process as you maybe do a ritual with the full moon. And even if you're not into rituals, it can be helpful just to like write down some of these things we just spoke about, some of these questions about what are your desires, what are your yearnings, what are you ready to receive, and what seeds do you want to plant? Where maybe have you already identified the things that you don't want, that have created inhibition, that have limited your full authentic expression and truth? And how can you gift some seeds to the world? What would you like to see happen in your community or in your family or in your friends, or even wider than that? What would you like to see happen universally? It's a powerful time to be in the Aquarian rise, this movement into interdependence and community and unity, greater wholes. And if you're someone who you have the vision of living in community, this is the time to plant. So may this message receive you well. May all of the codes and the transmissions, the directives that you are looking for be found here or outside of this space. And sending all of my love, appreciation. If you haven't already, it's helpful if I get that like on the videos, help with the algorithms. And if you want more, subscribe. Until next time, keep it pure and stay simple. Pura vida.